You are about to participate in the most ambitious culinary experiment ever imagined.
This competition is going to test everything.
Adapt quickly to anything. I mean anything. The wildest day of your life starts right now.
All new 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Sunday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job's just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer. Streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
Hey there! Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
2017 was truly the age of heroes. Wonder Woman got her own film. Thor and Hulk got to bro out. Spider-Man came home, and Logan bid adieu to the cinematic mutant machine. But one film looked to stand tall and team together the denizens of the DC universe. What we got? Well, that's up for debate. But in our opinion, Justice League is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A, great, and B, movies. Now, if you're regular to the show, then you know, and I'm not even going to try to apologize for this, I am a full-fledged, card-carrying member of Geek Nation. So when the opportunity to have Matt Dawson from the Mortalverse Audio Dramas come onto the show to talk about Justice League, you damn right to put my hand up and, put the invitation out there. So welcome for the first time on the show, Matt Dawson. Matt, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk about one of my favorite just groups of people, the Justice League. I mean, they're the Hall of Famers when it comes to team ups. You think it'd be obvious to give them a movie, and it'd be obvious to make it great. So what we got, I'm excited to talk about it. Very excited.
It took us how long to get to this point? We had up to this point, count them 6 Superman films. And I'm just talking about the live action ones. Let me do the math here. 7 Batman films, 8 if you want to count Batman v Superman. It took us a bit to get to this point with a couple of hits and a few misses, but we finally got the Justice League. And as someone who watched the cartoons excessively, like the Justice League Unlimited, and I'm old enough to say the Super Friends, freaking love the Super Friends. Everyone sounds like they're in an echo chamber. But to finally get this team into live action, as a fan of DC, how excited were you for this?
Dude, I went to the premiere screening of the local theater, and this was one of the most hyped movies I've ever been. I'm a Batman v Superman apologist as well. I think that movie's also very good. It doesn't get the flowers it deserves. Does it make mistakes? Absolutely. It's not perfect, far from it. So, and just coming into Justice League, I mean, like you were saying, huge fan of the cartoon. All these characters just live in my heart. I mean, this was a very special moment. And at this point, the MCU was going on about 10 years. Like you were saying in your intro, when you were stacking those cards up, I was like, man, 2017, we got Thor Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming, Logan. We got some good Marvel stuff that year. And I was just excited for DC to really get a good swing at these guys. I love Marvel 100%, but DC is kind of where my heart belongs. And I have always been rooting for them. I'm so excited for Superman and what James Gunn has planned for things to come. So yeah, Justice League just felt like the next step. Now, was it a next step too early? That's something to discuss, but it was a huge swing and I was there for it. Now, in my theater, I was shocked because I was at the premiere opening night and there were like 3 other people in my theater.
Oh, wow.
It was me, a buddy, and then like 3 other people. I was like, are we at the right showing? This thing should be packed. This is the Justice League movie. And I walked out of it quite liking it. And I know it's got some revisionist history with the Snyder cut in years to come, but I was hyped for it. And to me, I think it lived up to what my expectations were.
Now, obviously, before we got this movie, there was a Justice League planned. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because obviously it kind of leads into this massive 3-hour audio drama that you have put out. So please do us a favor. Please tell us a little bit about Justice League Mortal.
Justice League Mortal was a movie planned, I believe, to come out in 2010 or 11 by director George Miller, if you're familiar with the Mad Max franchise, and of course everyone's favorite Oscar-winning movie, Happy Feet. The director of those was doing a Justice League project, and it was all going great. I think the whole cast was there to film. It was going to be filmed in Australia. It follows Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, classic lineup. Oh, and Aquaman, of course. And just then the writer's strike hit of 2009 and everything just crapped the bed. It was gone. They just scrapped the whole project, but then the script had gotten out and I found that script, read through it, and I'm like, this is really interesting, especially putting into facts when it would have come out. This would have predated the first Avengers movie by 2 years and just did the big team up first. And it was like, wow, wouldn't that be crazy if we lived in that universe where Justice League beat the Avengers in making this big cinematic universe? So that's kind of the basis for what Mortalverse is. Justice League Mortal as a story, it follows, there's a comic line called Tower of Babel, I believe, which is basically Batman has all these contingency plans for each member of the Justice League, how to take them out if they were to go bad, and basically explores what would happen if those plans got into the wrong hands. And it's just a really fun story. So me and a team of just phenomenally, incredibly talented voice actors put it together, and it just came out magic. I think, like you were saying, it's 3 hours. It's a behemoth. This would have been a behemoth of a movie. But I mean, that's what George Miller does. He does these epic, grand scale movies, and I don't have millions of dollars to spend on making a real Justice League movie. So what better than an audio drama where we give you all the pieces, but you can make the movie yourself in your mind. So it's as great as you can imagine it, or as horrible as you can imagine it.
I mean, having had to listen to that and the Nightwing series that you have and the Green Arrow and Black Canary series that you have, like, there is some high quality audio production. So if you do like audiobooks, you're going to like what you hear. And you mentioned Tower of Babel. Like, I will admit that I freaking love the DC animated universe. And anyone who's seen Justice League Doom, that kind of also adapts the Tower of Babel series. Phenomenal.
Yep, it's great.
But we're, of course, talking about the 2017 2-hour-long Justice League, not the 4-hour Zack Snyder version, which I'm not going to lie, I have yet to be able to sit down and watch the entire thing all the way through. You know, about halfway through, my ass says, please get up and walk. For the love of God, before you atrophy, move. But this 2017 2-hour, Zack Snyder started, Joss Whedon finished Justice League. But before we get into the meat of this, before we dive down this road, it is time to take the Justice League and trailerize it.
We read the comic books. We watched the cartoons. We waited for the day that the DCEU would finally unite the seven. But be careful what you ask for. Joss Whedon helped bring the Avengers to the big screen. Now he takes on the most monumental task of all, squeezing all that Zack Snyder slow-mo into just 2 hours. The Justice League has united after a speed run of a Phase 1. Now, Earth finds itself in peril thanks to the mall cop of Darkseid's minions, Steppenwolf. He's looking for 3 mother boxes so he can CGI them together into something you'd expect in a Ratchet & Clank game. Meanwhile, Batman stops brooding and looks to put together a team comprised of a bunch of people that Lex Luthor had hidden camera footage of. That's not sketch at all. Along the way, this cavalcade of costume conscripts will wreak millions of dollars of city damage, rob a grave, experiment with alien tech, and ruin a perfectly good Jimmy Olsen cameo. It's the film that gave rise to the Snyder Cut, leading to a series of other ill-advised hashtag campaigns. I mean, seriously, do we really want the air cut of Suicide Squad? Learn from your mistakes, Internet. Look upon thy works and despair. It's Justice League. Rated PG-13 for post-production gutting.
That was amazing. That's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
We do like to have a little bit of fun in tearing it down before we build it back up. But it's true. Like, this went through, obviously, the quote-unquote studio interference of everything because, of course, they wanted to lighten the tone a little bit and maybe compact it down to 2 hours. You know, that manageable, you don't have to get up in the middle of the movie and pee kind of length, because we've all been there. Thanks, Endgame.
Hey, Pantheon listeners. Christian Swain here, taking a break from listening to a little Shout It Out Loudcast episode. Love Tom and Zeus talking all things Kiss. Of course, I was listening to them on my new Raycon wireless earbuds. They have quickly become my go-to earbuds because of the comfort. These soft tips are the best I've ever used. And at this price, plus a Pantheon discount, Raycon is really hitting on all marks. Sound quality is great too. I really love having these 3 EQ options because I like more bass in the music, but less in my podcast. 8 hours of playtime for the battery is great as well. Surround sound, noise isolating, and awareness mode are all included. These are great earbuds. Go to buyraycon.com/Pantheon today to get 20% off your Raycom order plus free shipping. That's right. You'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/Pantheon. buyraycon.com/Pantheon. Hey, Pantheon listeners, Christian Swain here. Another day, another podcast I'm working on. This time, it's Famous and Gravy with Amit and Michael. I want to let you know that I loved the Factor Meals package so much that I re-upped for myself, and then I sent a package to my in-laws. Like I was with my first shipment from Factor Meals, the in-laws were as excited to try one of the prepared restaurant quality meals. Well, they got the shipment to Protein Plus meal plan and were very impressed. See, being in their 80s, anything to make the meal prep easy is a plus for them. They heated the oven per instructions, and minutes later were enjoying a very delicious, nutritious, and dietitian-approved meal. One big win for me. But what really floored them was the taste. Like I told you, it's surprising how good these meals taste. Restaurant quality indeed. And like my own shipment, it really was everything Factor Meals said it would be for some seniors. No prep, no mess meals. Factor Meals are 100% ready to heat and eat. Take it from me and my in-laws. Head to factormeals.com/Pantheon50 and use the code Pantheon50 to get 50% off. That's factormeals.com/Pantheon50 and use the code Pantheon50 to get 50% off. Thank you, Factor Meals.
Hey, Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
But let's get into who is in this film. The movie stars Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, Ray Fisher, Jason Momoa, Amy Adams, Jeremy Irons, J.K. Simmons, Connie Nielsen, Diane Lane, Joe Morton, Amber Heard, and Kieran Hines. The movie, of course, was initially directed by Zack Snyder, but he had to step away, and it was finished by Joss Whedon. To date, this is the last film that Joss Whedon has actually directed, although he did do 3 episodes of The Nevers, and if you have actually seen that show, it's a great show. There were some accolades for this film. At the 2018 Kids' Choice Awards, Ben Affleck was nominated for Fave Movie Star. He lost to Dwayne Johnson for Jumanji, and Gal Gadot was nominated for Fave Movie Actress for this and Wonder Woman, but lost to Zendaya for Spider-Man and the Greatest Showman. We're going to hear a lot of comic book movie references because, like you mentioned, 2017, that was one hell of a year.
Big year.
2017 San Diego Film Critics Society Awards. Ezra Miller was nominated for the Best Comedic Performance Award. He lost to Daniel Craig for Logan Lucky. At the 2018 Teen Choice Awards, the movie was nominated for Choice Movie in the action category, lost to Avengers Infinity War, which may go down as maybe one of the best comic book movies of all time. Henry Cavill was nominated for Choice Movie Actor in Action. He lost to Robert Downey Jr. for Avengers Infinity War. Both Gal Gadot and Amy Adams were nominated for Choice Movie Actress in the action category. They lost to Scarlett Johansson for Avengers Infinity War. You see a theme here?
Yeah.
At the 2018 Movie Guide Awards, the movie was nominated for Best Film for Mature Audiences. They lost to The Darkest Hour. At the 2017 Detroit Film Critics Society Awards, Gal Gadot was nominated for Breakthrough Artist, but lost to Jordan Peele for writing and directing Get Out, which, you know, I don't disagree with that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
At the 2018 Jupiter Awards, Amy Adams was nominated for Best International Actress. She lost to Gal Gadot for Wonder Woman, so kind of keeps it in the Justice League family.
Yeah.
At the 2018 Oklahoma Film Critics Association Awards, and this is where it takes a slight downturn, the film was nominated for Most Disappointing Film, lost to 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and at the 2017 Golden Schmoes Award, it won for Biggest Disappointment of the Year. And you can probably point to the box office for that. The film had a budget of $300 million according to IMDb. Domestically, it only made $229 million. Worldwide, $661 million. So, Hollywood math made its money back, but only spent 1 week at number 1. The following week, it was knocked down to number 2 by Coco. In that opening weekend, on the November 17th, 2017 weekend, when there was only 3 people in your theater, this film obviously made bank, debuting with $93.8 million. The second film on the list that week was the debut of Wonder, which came in with $27.5 million. Also debuting that week was The Star, debuted with only $9 million. But I mean, you take a look at the rest of the top 6. Thor Ragnarok at number 3, Daddy's Home 2 at number 4, and Murder on the Orient Express at number 5. So not a bad week at the theater.
No.
But the reason why we are here, and not because I like to geek out and we got Matt, are the critics. Over at Metacritic, this film has a Metascore of 45. And over at Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is only 67%, which kind of surprises me with this one. But of course, critic score, 40%. Now, I want to put this into perspective here. Zack Snyder's Justice League. So, of course, the 4-hour-long button-numbing version of this that we got, and we couldn't go anywhere because we were all in the middle of a pandemic, so we had no choice but to watch 4 hours. So it kind of passed the time quite well.
What else were you going to do?
Right? You know? This actually has a Metascore of only 54. So by our college pass ratings on a Metascore, Zack Snyder's Justice League would also qualify, but over at Rotten Tomatoes has an audience score of 93% and a tomatometer 72%. But in the grand scheme of the DCEU on Rotten Tomatoes, this version ranks number 13, just ahead of Black Adam and behind Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which of course was nominated at this past year's Golden Raspberry Awards for Worst Film of the Year. Didn't win, because of course we had Winnie the Pooh. But yeah. Oh dear God.
The biggest shock out of everything you just said, I did not know there was hate for 3 Billboards. I did not know that was a disliked movie.
I was really, really surprised about that one. Like, there are some movies where you sit there and say, okay, I get it's a disappointment. And sometimes the trailer builds something up and then you go watch it and go, oh, that is nothing what I expected. And maybe, now I admit, I have not watched 3 Billboards, but I thought that was actually quite enjoyed.
Yeah, I know. That's why I thought. I watched it a couple of years. Admittedly, I don't remember much about it, so maybe that plays something. But I feel like with most disappointing, there's got to be some aspect of expectations versus reality. And I thought Justice League would clear that, because what expectations do people have for 3 Billboards, you know?
Right, but to the same token as well. I mean, I remember when the trailer for 3 Billboards came out, I'm like, oh, this looks like it's going to be good and both equally violent and sarcastic. Now, again, I haven't watched it, but it sounds to me like it was one of those, yeah, it was there and didn't quite live up to the hype. I always go back to The Dead Don't Die as one of those films that the trailer had me hype, the movie almost had me walk out. So I wonder if it's one of those kind of situations.
Yeah, I wonder.
But let's get into the breakdown of this and figure out what is good about Justice League. We're going to start with the Dark Knight himself, Batfleck. How was he for you in this?
I've always liked Ben Affleck's Batman. I think he is almost perfectly casted as Batman. I think what they choose to do with him in the writers and directors chair might not always be the best. But I mean, you look back at Batman the Animated Series, that just to me looks like Ben Affleck, that Bruce Wayne. He's got this huge build, like he fills that bat suit great. In this movie in particular, I like him. Like I said, it's just some of the writing for him. I don't like Batman being quippy all the time. I'm trying to think of the joke, but it's like, I don't not like you or something like that. I'm like, okay, when Batman say that, but I think they really took all the criticism from Batman v Superman and they really plugged it in here, because he's not going around shooting people, he's not snapping necks, he's not leaving people in bloody messes. And I think that's something. Give him these the parademons to let him go ham on. That's fun. We could, if Zack Snyder really needs these guys to snap necks and cut people open, do it to aliens. I think that's just a rule of Hollywood. It's okay if it's robots or aliens. And they let Batman go off in this movie. He's great.
I mean, I remember like back in the days of like Saturday morning cartoons, and like Transformers was fine because it was just robots beating up robots. So a little bit of, motor oil got spilled. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Until of course the Transformers, the movie, and we had our childhood completely ripped out of us by Optimus Prime dying and the Vince DiCola soundtrack, the dun 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 dun. It's like, oh, he's dead. That's okay. He's coming back next season. He comes back next season. It's okay. I think you're right in the fact the tonality of his dialogue really went from almost like a cross between, the Batman, the animated series, and the grumpiness of Bruce Wayne from Batman Beyond. It's kind of like that weird middle ground. And I think he nailed that age of Bruce Wayne perfectly in Batman v Superman. Did he kill? Yes, he did. We'll work around that. But he went from tonality Bruce Wayne of that age being almost perfect in his demeanor towards Superman to all of a sudden like discount Tony Stark. And yes, I get fans of Lego Batman, Iron Man sucks, like
yeah, exactly.
But you don't have to make him funny. There are other characters there that you can have fun with looking at the Flash, because hell, the animated series had fun with the Flash. He was the comic relief. Batman was always supposed to be that serious, except when, you know, there were moments. There were moments. And Kevin Conroy was always perfect at letting those moments kind of slide through. But like you go back to that whole Justice League Doom animated film, and like the whole, he leaves the Justice League because he knows that, you know, they could never trust him again. Like Batman is dead serious, even in the animated series, but it went all jokes. And I get you want to lighten the tonality of the film to step away from the darkness of Batman v Superman, but this wasn't the way to go, not with him. I still think he's good, and I think he makes a decent Bruce Wayne in this. I just don't think in those Batman moments, the levity should have been there.
And that's why those moments in the animated series like pop so much and you remember them, because they weren't every other line. And that's one of the things when talking about this movie is it is kind of like a Frankenstein of a movie. And if we recorded this podcast before the Snyder Cut versus after, I think this would be a very different episode, because now we have the Snyder Cut. We know what is the Joss Whedon in this versus what Snyder did. Some of it's surprising if you watch that Snyder Cut. I think people were placing bets on what was and wasn't his, but it's just, I think Joss Whedon came from the MCU, had two very successful Avengers movies, and thought he could inject that into this. And it doesn't work for this. It works, like you said, with the Flash. To me, that's always been the heart and soul of the Justice League. But Ezra Miller, to me, is not the Flash. I don't think that his casting works in the slightest. And they even tried to do it with Aquaman a bit. He's kind of the funny guy too. And Batman has moments, and it's like, okay, we can't have everyone be the funny guy. Like, we need Batman. The reason those moments stick out is because Batman is so serious all the time. So when he has that moment of, I don't know, I gotcha, there's something funny, that really, it's like a really funny moment. But and then Flash can constantly have those. It's just how well you know these characters and how they were brought to life in this that takes some issue. I mean, Cyborg's usually the funny guy too. That could have been in this. He's probably more serious in this than Batman is. So it's just, I don't know. You could have had that great, maybe make Batman and Wonder Woman these more seasoned heroes, the more serious ones, and then give that kind of younger duo, Flash and Cyborg, the more comedic side. And it's just this weird mishmash sometimes and doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, yes, even in the animated series, there were those moments. And I keep flashing back to, I think it was an episode in Justice League Unlimited where for some reason there was like a whole working towards some magic thing. And then all of a sudden Batman's singing, and Zatanna and Wonder Woman are just eating up the moment because he's doing it to save Wonder Woman. It's like, are you gonna let him know this? Well, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
But even then, he's still serious in the singing. It's everyone else kind of around it. And yes, I think you're almost bordering on Ghostbusters Answer the Call territory, where everyone's trying to be the funny, and there's not much in the way of grounding, except for Gal Gadot, who of course played Wonder Woman again. How was Gal Gadot in this for you? I know she didn't have maybe the best of times dealing with the Whedon reshoots, but how was she in this version?
I've always liked Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. I don't think she's perfect, but there is just this heart to her that it just works for me. And in Batman v Superman, when she came in, I was hyped. Like, we are finally getting Wonder Woman. Like Batman, Superman, like you were saying, they had 6, 7, 8 movies before this. We haven't seen Wonder Woman. She had the first Wonder Woman came out the same year.
Yep.
So it took all this time. We finally, Wonder Woman's in the spotlight. And then this movie just kind of, I don't know how to put it. You definitely can tell the Joss Whedon parts. let's just put it that way. It kind of doesn't get Wonder Woman in some instances, but in other parts, I think it does kick off that badassery of her. And that's like, at the end of the day, that's what Wonder Woman's about. And I love the scenes where she's either going toe to toe with Steppenwolf, which, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about him, or Superman. And it's like, if we don't have Superman, this is the next big thing. And I think that's kind of what they do get in this movie. I think her performance in this isn't as good as it is in BVS or Wonder Woman, but it does have some shining moments. I do like her talk with Cyborg at the beginning, to kind of his call to adventure. She just works as more that mentor, seasoned hero type, like I was saying earlier.
I find that the scenes that felt like they got changed the least between the two versions, at least again, of what I made it through for the Zack Snyder version, because again, 4 hours, right, is Wonder Woman scenes seem to be the one that were trimmed for time, but not for content. And I keep flashing back to like the, her scene where she stops the terrorists at the museum. Like that feels, yes, trimmed for time, but not for tonality or content. I do have a problem with where that scene is in the edit. It just feels like it's kind of out of place at that point.
Yeah.
There's a perfect spot, like let Bruce Wayne go to Iceland to go try to get Aquaman. And then like when he's on the plane and shaving and Alfred asks about what about Diana? That's where you put that scene. Mm-hmm. You smash cut to that scene.
Yep.
Like maybe it's the editor in me, but there are a couple of scenes where I would almost change the spot of certain beats of the film just to, for story flow's sake. I will say that you're right. Gal Gadot nails Wonder Woman. Like, and again, it's one of those things when she was first cast, people were like, really her? But yes, really her. And prior to this, what did we have? We had, the old TV series with Linda Carter. We had the pilot with Adrienne Palicki, which, I mean, I don't think she would have made a bad Wonder Woman. I just think the tonality of that series wouldn't have done it any justice. Here, Gal Gadot has probably been one of the brightest shining stars of the entire DCEU prior to now the James Gunn version of the DC cinematic universe. She should be praised for this. She absolutely should be. I just think her scenes need to be reworked as far as where they are in the movie, at least initially in the first parts, as opposed to where they ended up.
Yeah. Yeah. And the editor in you is talking to the writer and me, because I'm just thinking, like, what if that scene, like you said, it comes in, what about Diana? Boom, she's there. What if she is facing this crisis within herself of like, Superman's gone, I'm the next big gun? What if she has to deal with that pressure now? What if like that's her conflict throughout the movie? But we don't really get that. Her role in this is kind of just get the team together, keep them together. But that's just the writer and me talking to the editor and you, and let's make the it's not that bad cut happen. Let's get more cuts in this movie.
Yeah, because that's what we need. More edits, more cuts of Justice League. Yep. It's going to be like the Superman 2, where there's like the original theatrical, then the Donner cut, and then I'm sure there's the Donner Ultimate cut or whatever, and
we'll get the widescreen edition.
Yeah,
we'll get it all.
Then we'll put it in 4:3 just because Zack Snyder wanted us to.
Black and white, yeah.
Right. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love the opening of this film because it reminds me so much of Justice League War, where the whole thing starts with the parademons dropping these mother boxes off to open the portal so Darkseid can basically come to Earth. Here we start with the parademon, and I'm like, okay, so they're going to go down this road. I'm really kind of excited for this. And then it went into quips. And yes, I think that with Batman and Wonder Woman being more of the, as you mentioned, the seasoned heroes, they should be comparing notes and then decide to start seeking other people. That would make sense. But here we are.
And one thing about that opening scene that it's a nitpick and it's just funny is that Bruce calls Alfred with that criminal just standing next to him. He's like got the thing tied up or whatever. And he's like, Alfred, like the criminal talks to him and then he talks to Alfred, says him by name. Like, Bruce, is this your first day? We use code. We don't just say Alfred with the thug next to you.
Yeah. Batman's a little loose with the secret identity part. You know, the secret is now in quotation marks, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Henry Cavill returning as Superman. I can get past the digital mustache cut. I'm fine with that. It didn't really affect me too much. But how was Superman in this version for you?
I like him more in this than the Snyder cut. Because first of all, he's in it way before the 3-hour mark. Like, I think that's insane to make a Justice League movie and not have Superman show up. And I'm pretty sure you can quote me on this. 3 hours in. Like, that's insane to me. And I just think that opening scene, yes, he has the weird lip animation, which never bothered me until this watch through. This time I did kind of notice it. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty bad. But it's doable. I get it. Mission Impossible probably takes priority than reshoots. But I do really like that scene where he's talking to the kids. And because that to me is Superman. Like after the big battle, he'll talk to kids. They're filming their little podcast or YouTube video, and he just symbolizes that hope. I really like what they did with this costume. It's very bright. It's not black and white. It's very bright. It pops. It's Superman, and I think the painted on abs are a bit much this time around. It's very yeah, let's just call it that. But yeah, I think Henry Cavill I think this might be my favorite Superman performance by him. And that's just because I'm not a big fan of Zack Snyder's doom and gloom Superman. I mean, he spends half of Batman v Superman just sad. And this one, I like that moment he has with Cyborg of like, I like being alive. And he kind of just has that Superman energy. This is, I think, the first time and maybe the only time in the DCEU watching Henry Cavill as Superman where I'm like, okay, he gets it. This is it. I like this Superman.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, Christopher Reeve's Superman embodied hope. Absolutely. Like thinking the best and hoping for the best and wanting the best for humanity. Hope. No matter how bad the script was. Superman 4, Quest for Peace. But even with Brandon Routh, right? He made a good Superman. And I actually don't think Superman Returns was that bad either. Like here, finally, we got the Superman that wants the best for humanity because he thinks the world of humanity. Finally. No more brooding. No more staring at the TV. And I love that opening. I love that you mentioned that opening scene because there's something also in the sparseness of that scene, like audio wise, because it's just a cell phone of two kids getting the chance to ask Superman questions. And, he's just sitting there and taking it all in and letting them like kind of geek out a little bit as they're trying to get their questions in. Like it's a very innocent scene. And the fact that it ends with him before he answers a question, and then we get into the world without Superman montage, I think that adds even more impact to it. And I think it's a much more interesting world setting opening of the film than we had with the beginning of the Zack Snyder version.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, the Zack Snyder, that's one where his scream kind of echoes around the world. Yeah, I do remember that. I like that. But yeah, that song too, the Everybody Knows, that's just a bop to me. That's in my playlist. I like that song. And even it is a little corny, that opening, like the homeless man with the sign that says, I tried. I'm like, okay, if Superman were here, you would probably still be homeless. I don't think that's Superman's fault, but like the fruit stand getting robbed. Okay, I see it. But it's just, I think a tone thing of like the world is a darker place without Superman. And I think this Superman conveys it. Like the Man of Steel Superman, if he were to die at the end of that movie, I'd probably be like, that might be a good thing. Maybe we needed to get rid of him. But to start out with that phone scene and then to go to the robberies, the homelessness, the big banners over London, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm convinced the world is a darker place without Superman.
Oh, yeah. And for the record, that version of Everybody Knows is amazing. You know, when you think about probably the three best known versions of that song, of course, there's the one from this film. There's the original Leonard Cohen. And then there's, of course, the version that Concrete Blonde did for the soundtrack from Pump Up the Volume. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal song. And this version hits on so many levels because of the, not just the vocals, but also like the dark turn the music goes with it. Amazing choice for it.
Yeah, I love it.
Amy Adams, who returns as Lois Lane. Again, here's another one where the tonality changes a little bit. In the Zack Snyder version, we have a lot more what feels like grief from Lois in this. Here, while it's not so much grief, it's more like self-healing, of course, with Martha Kent. I said Martha. I said that name.
Why did you say that name?
How was Amy Adams in this version?
I've always liked her as Lois. I have a ton to say about her, admittedly, but I do like her. It's not real. I can't go on a deep dive of Lois in this 100 years almost of character growth and all that. And is she really embody the character? But I think she does her own thing with it. She's not Mary Jane in those Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, constantly screaming for Superman to save her and all that. And that's good and fun. And she just kind of, and I really like her relationship with Martha in this movie. And the fact that even though their kind of connection is gone in Clark, that they still have a bond and they kind of trauma bond together, help each other out. But yeah, I like her, and I like her and Martha in this movie. They're both great.
I mean, if you go back to, and I'm probably going to be referring to the animated films a lot because I freaking love them. Reign of the Superman, which was the second part of the Death of Superman animated films. We see Lois basically burying herself almost in her work as a way to kind of cope. And that to me is kind of what Lois Lane should probably have done. So I don't think the script really did Amy Adams much in the way of it. I think I would have preferred if we didn't have so much Lois and Martha in the beginning of it. And then the reveal when they do revive Superman, that's when we finally get to see Lois. And it's like, yes, in the back pocket all the time. You know, Bruce Wayne's always thinking, but again, just the editor and me. Just the editor.
Yeah.
I know we mentioned Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, and I want to preface before we get into his performance in this. We don't necessarily talk about what actors do outside of the movies that they're in, because that's not what this podcast is about. We are talking about actors playing fictional characters in fictional stories. That's what we're focusing on. So, yes, did he do things? Absolutely. But let's talk about his performance in this film. I know everyone says Grant Gustin should have been cast, and I fully and wholeheartedly agree, because I think Grant Gustin really nailed Barry Allen. But we got Ezra Miller. So how was he in this?
Awful. He's awful in this. I do not like, I've never liked Ezra Miller as the Flash. That's not Barry Allen to me. I mean, Grant Gustin, like you were saying, that's a very good portrayal. My question is, when are we going to get a blonde Barry Allen on the big screen or the small screen? Have we forgotten that he's blonde? Is anyone going to do this? I mean, I think this movie has something against blondes, because Aquaman, Jason Momoa, we're not doing that blonde either. Okay. But Ezra Miller as the Flash, it's just too awkward. He just plays I think he thinks he's Peter Parker, and a bad Peter Parker at that. It's just constant mumbling, bumbling around. I'd like the Flash to have kind of this suave charisma awkwardness to him. Like, he can be awkward, but he doesn't think he's being awkward. He thinks he's the coolest guy in the room. This Flash, he acts like a middle schooler on picture day, and his mom made him put on an outfit he hates, and he's just embarrassed to be there. I don't like it. I think I know what they were going for, kind of this mentorship between Bruce and him, kind of a la Spider-Man and Iron Man in the MCU. I think that's kind of what they wanted in this version, but it just doesn't work. I've been talking for a while, but the costume for the Flash in this, it's so ugly. I hate it. It's too armored. It's got these random vein things kind of going through the art. It's just, I hate the costume, and I hate the way he runs in the costume. Why is he ice skating? That's not how running works. I could go on for an hour about the Flash alone. He's easily, to me, the weakest part of this movie, and maybe this entire franchise. Don't get me started on his solo movie. It's so bad.
I'm going to be honest. I was surprised when I heard that Shazam! Fury of the Gods was nominated for Worst Film of the Year when it should have been The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely.
I was just having that conversation about Quantum Mania. Someone's like, it was way worse than The Flash. I'm like, was it? Like Quantum Mania isn't great. I mean, you could probably do an episode on Quantum Mania, but like, at least it had Kang and some good moments in there. The Flash is just nothing. And I know this isn't the Flash podcast, but that movie's, yeah, it's so bad.
I mean,
so
I kind of equate Quantum Mania to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, where it's burdened by the amount of CGI that has to be there in order to make the story work.
Yeah.
With the Flash, yes, you're dealing with Ezra Miller. And I will say, had you told me that Ezra Miller was going to be cast as Clarion in a Young Justice movie or a Young Justice series, I'm like, okay, I could see that.
Yeah,
I could actually see that. But you're right. And oh my God, teach the boy to run.
Yeah. What are we doing? What is that?
Right? Like, does it look weird sometimes when Grant Gustin does it? Yes, sure, but nowhere near as awkward. Like, no one in the history of ever, like, had he pulled a Naruto run, I would have believed it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I really don't like him in this. I really don't. And you're right. It's not Barry Allen. Yes, Barry Allen is the character that you're going to lean on for quips. I mean, that's what the Justice League animated series has done. That's what every single Justice League animated property has done. He's the one that's going to make the jokes. He's the one that's going to be sitting there wondering who took his chimichanga. Like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I don't think I'm quoting Deadpool. He actually says that in Justice League War. So there's that. There is that.
There you go.
I do. I just wish they had cast somebody else. I like Jason Momoa in the film, but please, he's Lobo.
Yeah.
He's freaking Lobo.
He wants to do it. Let's make it happen. I think the universe needs to come together for that. And I'm with you. I don't dislike his Aquaman. I think he has a very fun take on the character. It's different. And in an age, especially 2010s, 2000s in general, of just like, Aquaman's a joke. He's lame. He talks to fish. To just get the coolest guy to play him is how you combat all that. And forgive me if I'm skipping ahead to the Aquaman segment, but he's great.
Oh no, we've segued quite well. I think we're here now.
Hey, there we go. Aquaman's great. I love him.
But it's true. Like, he brings a bit more machismo to it. I'll give him that. And yes, we're talking about a character that Robot Chicken has been poking fun at for years and years and years. And you want to pull away from that Super Friends portrayal of Aquaman, but, and I have no problems with you going with a dark-haired Aquaman. I'm fine with that. I just think tonality-wise, if you had gone with a more, because he's very serious, right? At times, he's very protective of Atlantis. I get it. Had you gone a bit more Justice League Unlimited style, personality-wise, but then again, if you're going to use him as comic relief in this, he's not a bad choice.
No. I like him in this movie. I think even the choice to cast Jason Momoa, who I believe is Polynesian, I think that's a cool choice for the character, besides just the most pasty white guy. Like we could, and I think in the Aquaman movie, his brother Orin looks like how I would cast Aquaman, and I think that's kind of a cool thing in there to be like, okay, here's the Aquaman I would do versus what we got, and it works. I think Jason Momoa works. He just brings this fun energy in a different way than what you expect, and it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the Aquaman feature film, it works even better. Here, it's a bit more Sons of Anarchy Aquaman than you would probably want, and you know,
man,
right? But then of course you get a bit more jokier when you get to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I think here it's in this version, because in the Zack Snyder version, he is a bit more serious and it's a little bit less quippy. I do like the point, and yes, I get it. It's Joss Whedon, but whatever. You know, like where he's, you know, sitting in Wonder Woman and going, "Oh, you're beautiful," and like so he starts going on with it. But then you realize he's sitting on the lasso of truth, and I'm like, okay, so that gag is funny. It works in that sense. He was better in the full length Aquaman, but that's just my take.
Yep. He gets more time to shine in it too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what this is and what Justice League Mortal was going to be is basically just a feeler. Throw out a net and be like, all right, what characters do people like in this? Do people want to see a cyborg movie after this? What are the people calling for? You're not going to get the full Aquaman experience until people are like, okay, I like Aquaman. Then DC sees money, sees green, and is like, all right, get James Wan on the phone, get us that Aquaman movie. And sure enough, over $1 billion. I cannot believe an Aquaman movie made over $1 billion.
Right? I mean, it's fascinating when you say that they were going to do a Justice League film and then figure out who to follow afterwards. Whereas, you know, now we're so used to, let's do a couple of little individual films, then we'll put them all together because that's what kind of we're working up to. This felt a little speed run because, of course, all we had of The Flash and Aquaman before this was, you know, some secure, and Cyborg was security cam footage or like, you know, Lex Luthor's files. So I get it and I understand. That's your almost like your soft boot. That's like your end of Captain America and the Winter Soldier with your very quick soft boot introduction of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver before you get into Age of Ultron. But yeah, we'll get into soft boots and what didn't happen a little bit later here.
Yeah.
But since we're in the ocean, again, we're avoiding real world talk here. We're just talking about fictional characters and the actors who played them. Small part, but Amber Heard as Mira. I mean, I actually don't mind her as Mira, but and yes, it's a smaller part in this. But how was she for you?
I'm in the same boat as you. She's not given a ton to do in this movie, but she's probably one of the most in these DCU movies I'm pretty just middle on. I'm just fine with her in every performance. No strong feelings outside of real world events, which we won't talk about, but she's just fine. She's just good. She does what she has to do. She comes in, tells Aquaman what the deal is. Hey, this is going to be the plot of your movie when we get to that. And, but first deal with this. And it's fine. She has a cool scene fighting Steppenwolf, which is that Snyder Cut thing only? The blood thing where she pulls the blood out of him. I'm not sure if that was only
Snyder that's only cut. The Snyder Cut.
Okay, well then she doesn't have a cool moment in this.
But the fact that they have her looking after the mother box and, you know, part of the defense team, that kind of puts her, at least cements her status in Atlantis at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
Ray Fisher as Cyborg. Of course, this is the first full-length version of Cyborg that we're getting on the feature film. How was he for you?
I think from him, okay, if we're going from Henry Cavill, who I think is way better in this movie than the Snyder Cut, I think Ray Fisher is the opposite. I think he's not Ezra Miller bad in this, but he's just given nothing to do. But in the Snyder Cut, I think he is probably the standout of like, holy they cut a lot of this guy out in the original. He's good in this. I'm not a big fan of the cyborg design. I think it's very just a mess of metal with no kind of what do you call it? No pattern, no synergy to it. But I like his performance. I think there's great potential there. I think if the DCU were to continue forward, I think there's certainly potential for him to be one of the standouts. But we don't live in that universe. So someone else make it happen through audio dramas, I guess. I'm sure Ray Fisher would be on board. He seems to love playing this character.
Well, the thing too is, you're dealing with, and no, he doesn't appear in this film, but you are dealing with Darkseid. You're dealing with Darkseid's minions. So you're dealing with Apocalypse. And the fact that Cyborg exists because of one of the mother boxes, I mean, again, going back to the DC animated universe, Cyborg plays a massive role from the very beginning, from Justice League War, all the way up to Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Like, and for the record, if you've ever seen Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, dear listeners, you're in for a treat. Go watch that one. I freaking love that one. But here, it feels almost glossed over the fact that, yes, you are literally made from the very thing that Steppenwolf is hunting for. He has one line in this about it's like, you smell, you were birthed from this. I'm like, and that's it. Like, how does Ray Fisher, how does Cyborg not play more into this? You're right. It's an absolute missed opportunity. But the other fact is this: Vic Stone is a quarterback, which means that he's used to the role of a field general. Use that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. I love that.
Play into the whole Vic Stone storyline, right? And yes, I liked the interactions between him and Flash. I know there was, at times they were called Flyborg. I get it. And even in the animated series, the connection between Cyborg and Shazam, which I wish we could have had that moment. I think Zach Levi and Ray Fisher on screen together would have been great.
Yeah.
But we didn't get it.
I think if they made the decision to make Cyborg more fun, and I get that in those early Cyborg comics, even in the Teen Titans, he is a lot of doom and gloom in the early issues of like, I'm a monster, no one loves me, my dad turned me into this, da 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 da. But I think once you get past that, you see he gets this really fun relationship with Beast Boy, and then he's always kind of the, I don't want to call him the bully, but he's kind of the tough guy of the group, and you just get this fun personality out of him. And I just don't think that comes through here. And I'm sure maybe in the future they would have had him kind of see, but I think there's this great moment in the comics, and I think they adapt it in the Teen Titans cartoon, of where Cyborg's having this really tough time. I'm this machine, I'm this monster. And then he sees this kid playing catch, and he like gets the kid this ball, and he hands the kid the ball, and he sees the kid's got like a prosthetic hand. And the kid's like, oh my gosh, you're so cool, that like your whole body is this. And he really looks up to Cyborg, and then he sees it's this whole school of kids that are kind of in this disabled community. And he just he joins that. He's like a student teacher for them. He goes on these trips with them. And it's like, there's so much potential for Cyborg there. And it's a division of superhero. We don't see a lot of superheroes for disabled people or stuff like that. So I think there's so much potential there for Cyborg to be that, but you have to get through that. I'm a monster, I'm this freak. How do we get there from point A to point B? And I don't think this movie really takes any effort from going from point A to point B. He just kind of starts this movie, I'm a monster, I hate this, and then he ends the movie kind of like, I'm a monster, but now I got some friends. It's like, okay.
You really hit on something there, in that he could have been that for disabled people or people with amputees or prosthetics. I mean, look what Alakwa Cox has done with Echo, right?
Yep.
Deaf, amputee. Echo is a phenomenal character for people to really hone in on and take on as their own. With the Zack Snyder version, you have someone who looks like they took a look at the comic books and took a look at the animated movies and said, this is Cyborg. With this, it feels like Joss Whedon looked at Teen Titans Go.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were about 2 minutes away from him singing about waffles.
Yeah. Yep. We were.
Jeremy Irons is Alfred Pennyworth. I freaking love Jeremy Irons in this role, but how was Alfred?
He's great. Like you said, I love him too. I think my favorite Alfred is Michael Caine in the Dark Knight movies. I think to me, that's just Alfred. And this, funny thing through this watch through, I looked at my phone at one point while Alfred was talking. And so I wasn't watching the screen and I just thought, holy shit, that's Scar. Like I didn't even I didn't make that connection in my head that Jeremy Irons played both characters, but he's great in this. I love him. He's a little more comedic in this than BVS, but I like Alfred to be comedic. I like him to kind of be that guy that if you're not going to have a Robin, have him be the one that's like, oh, Master Bruce, you're so serious all the time. Like, get over yourself. It's fun to have that dynamic there. And Jeremy Irons sells it. He's one of the best parts of this franchise.
You know, say what you will about some of the casting in movies and TV shows across the DC universe and across the decades. I don't think there is one DC character that has been so perfectly cast every single iteration as Alfred. You know?
Yeah, there's not a bad Alfred casting.
No,
I don't think there is.
Andy Serkis, bang on. For the Batman, he's perfect for it. Jeremy Irons in this, perfect for this. You said Michael Caine. You got Michael Goff in the Michael Keaton era. You had Alan Napier in the Adam West series, who was, just a gem.
Yep.
Really, everyone seems to get Alfred right.
Yeah, he's just a fun character. And the people, Rob Patrick, who plays Alfred in Justice League Mortal in my audio drama, he just had so much fun with it. It's just such a fun character of, like I said, he's just that soft spot on Bruce. And Bruce is all this brooding to everyone else, but Alfred is the one he trusts. He's that father figure. And yeah, nobody has screwed it up yet. Maybe they should cast Ezra Miller as Alfred in the DC next step.
Nope, and no. But since we're still in the Batman world here, J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon. I mean, yes, I freaking love Gary Oldman, what he did. But J.K. Simmons pretty much nailed it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I always forget he's played Gordon. He just doesn't get enough to do in these. And I think that's the biggest crime is underutilizing J.K. Simmons. That's the biggest crime any movie could commit. But as Commissioner Gordon, I think there is something there. I just wish we got to see it more.
Oh, absolutely. Like, he's so good in this for the short time that he's on screen. Joe Morton, who played Silas Stone, we'll try not to hold, the Terminators against him, but how was he in this?
He's good. He's good. I like him in this. I like him in the Snyder Cut. He's good at playing this sympathetic character of he had difficult choices to make. He just wants to protect his son, lost his wife. He's good in both of these. Another character like J.K. Simmons, I wish we got to see more of.
Oh, absolutely. But now we get to the baddie. Kieran Hines as Steppenwolf.
He's bad. he's another one like Ray Fisher's Cyborg who gets very improved upon in the Snyder Cut. This one, he's got this weird design. I always call it the Play-Doh armor because it looks like someone just grabbed a bunch of Play-Doh and stuck it on a gray figure. It's not great. And his weird obsession with saying mother is a problem. This guy's got some kinks he needs to work out with his therapist. He's got troubled past, I'm sure. But just, he's like, you're doing your first Justice League movie. And what's the DC universe has all these fantastic villains from, like we were mentioning, Darkseid. You could do Starro, Mongol, any single one of these great villains for the League, and who do you pick? The one villain I had to Google? Me? Had to Google a guy before going in to see this movie and find out he's like Darkseid's second cousin uncle-in-law? And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? What a bizarre choice. And like a lot of comparisons to the Avengers. Your first Avengers villain, Loki, someone who was, first of all, already established in the universe with that first Thor film. People love Tom Hiddleston in that role. And then you go into the first Avengers movie. Okay, who's the first Avengers villain in the comics? It's Loki. That works, and the performance maintains that. You go to Steppenwolf. I'm not sure if I could name you a single comic he's in. It's just such a shame. You get one of the greatest universes for these villains. I mean, even Justice League Mortal uses Maxwell Lord, the Omax, Talia al Ghul. It's just, why Steppenwolf? That's the big question. That should be the title of this episode. Why Steppenwolf? Why are we here?
And there's the thing too, like, I think this is where the DCEU really kind of faltered at points. Michael Shannon as General Zod, no problems. I have no notes. He understood the assignment. You know, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Black Manta, again, a phenomenal casting and portrayal. And there's a lot though that leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, I'm not going to even get into Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. You know,
hey, do you want Jolly Rancher? I can put one in your mouth for you.
No. I instantly became allergic to Jolly Ranchers the minute that movie came out.
Yeah. And people putting their fingers in my mouth too. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Don't do that, kids.
We just got through a pandemic. We don't do that, people.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Steppenwolf is such a one-note character in this, at least in the Zack Snyder version. You know, he's communicating with Desaad. He's communicating with Darkseid. We have a connection with Apocalypse, and we know that there is a bigger threat than just Steppenwolf. Here, it's like he's just on his own. Like he's, you know, just there is no Darkseid except for, like, I think he says once for Darkseid. It's like, oh, cool. We're going to get to see him? No. Okay, cool. You're not going to do that? Okay. I mean, I didn't initially mind the look of Steppenwolf. I love the fact that he was huge. I love the fact that he was menacing. You know, I think the voice portrayal of Steppenwolf did well, even though the script didn't necessarily do the job for him. But it was just a one-note villain.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Everything you just said. I don't think the voice performance is bad. Why Steppenwolf? That's just what I keep coming back to. I wish, and that's another thing with the Snyder cut. I think it improves Steppenwolf. I love the design there. I mean, that scene where they all shoot the arrows at him, he just flexes and all the blades break. Oh, it's so good. And like you were saying, he has more motivation in the Snyder cut, where he has those talks with Desaad about, I just want to get back home. You see why he's doing this. Why is he doing it in this movie? Because Darkseid's cool and he likes him. That's it.
Because reasons. And that's the thing too, right? In the Zack Snyder version of the film, Steppenwolf is a much more three-dimensional character. You know, he's trying to get back home. He's doing this as a way to regain favor with Darkseid. He has to go through Desaad to get to Darkseid. Like, there's so much more complexity to Steppenwolf that you almost understand him a little bit. All the best villains in their minds are right and give you moments where you sit there and you almost agree with them. I still think, for my money, one of the best villain portrayals in any recent superhero production is David Tennant, who played Kilgrave in the first season of Jessica Jones. Because there's a moment in that season where you sit there and go, I understand why he's doing this, and I feel sorry for him in this case. Like, Tennant pulled that off brilliantly. Steppenwolf is better served with the 4-hour version, even if the atrophy in my legs from sitting there and watching it isn't necessarily well served. But I do agree that there could have been a better villain for that. But even that flashback scene, where the Atlanteans and the Amazons and the gods all fight off Steppenwolf. But in the Zack Snyder version, it's Darkseid coming to take over the Earth. And it's like, okay, now I guess. So Steppenwolf is almost like the advanced front from Apocalypse rather than the frontal assault that they tried the last time. Ugh.
Yeah, I like that a lot in the Snyder Cut, that Darkseid scene, replacing him, or replacing Steppenwolf with him. In this, and another thing about that scene, we finally get to see a Green Lantern in this universe. It's a monkey. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I get it. Green Lanterns are everything, but come on. Green Lantern fans are starving out there.
Oh, yeah.
But let's throw them a bone, please.
But there's the thing, right? Like, you have that scene, then you have a Green Lantern who's in battle with everyone, and it's like, oh, cool, the Lantern Corps exists. This is great. And yes, okay, so the Green Lantern dies, and the ring flies off, and you're like, another one's about to get a ring. It's all good, right? Yep. And then, no. Nothing. Before we get into some of the technical aspects of this, we have to talk about the end credits scene. And I'm not talking about the race between Superman and the Flash, even though I kind of enjoyed that a little bit, because again, it allows Henry Cavill to bring our Superman back to a more lighter-hearted character. And I mean, that is really pulled from the comic books, the Superman Flash race to see who really is the fastest man alive kind of thing. Like, I get that. No, I'm talking about the very, very end. And since I mentioned Jesse Eisenberg, you're going to have to bring him up here. But Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke. I think it's brilliant casting. I think it's absolutely brilliant casting. But this scene eventually goes nowhere because we didn't get another Justice League film. We didn't get to see the Legion of Doom. Do you feel kind of let down of what this could have meant?
Well, it's, to me, disappointing because I think that because Ben Affleck was writing a Batman movie that was planned to have Deathstroke as the villain, and it's sad because Manganiello, I'm struggling, Deathstroke, he really wanted to do it. And did you see he even was like talking to James Gunn recently, and James Gunn was like, man, you gotta let it go. We're not doing that. Like, you're not Deathstroke anymore. It's sad to get that, especially at the time of the MCU where they were just hinting in those post-credit sequences and like knocking them out of the park every time to get this Legion of Doom or the Injustice League, whatever it was going to be. Even if you have Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor at the front of it, which is its own can of worms of badness, there's still potential there. And we saw Cheetah in Wonder Woman 84. Maybe she could have came back for that, or the Deathstroke and Black Manta. There is potential there, but we're never going to see it, and that is disappointing. I do like the Flash versus Superman race scene because, I mean, I'm a nerd who doesn't want, who hasn't asked the question, who wins in a race, Superman or the Flash? And even though we don't get a definitive answer in this, it's still fun to talk about. But yeah, it's disappointing in that aspect, but not to be unexpected at this point in the DCEU.
Oh yeah, no, this was when people started tuning out, I think. And yeah. I think that's the thing too. Like, you take a look at Wonder Woman and Aquaman, they were, and the first Shazam, right? They were so well received. And I think those three films, if you're talking about like the perfect tonality for a superhero film, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam in their first outings really nailed it. And in their second outings, not so much, even though I didn't hate Shazam 2 and I didn't hate Aquaman 2, but the first ones were definitely there. But I think too, with Aquaman 2 and Shazam 2, we already knew that the DCEU was, it was DOA.
Yep.
So it was hard to get invested into what was or was not going to happen. And now, you're hearing that Peacemaker season 2 is happening. So Is the
but
DCEU.
it's not connected to season 1, or it is, but that's all confusing mess. And same thing happened to Blue Beetle. I loved Blue Beetle, but it never got its legs because people didn't care because they knew it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So why go see the movie at all if it's, I mean, I loved it. I hope we get to see more Blue Beetle. Give me all the Blue Beetle movies. I'm there.
Oh yeah.
But it just died on arrival because nobody cared. It's over. It was like the party kept going and the lights were turned off. No one was home. I was in bed. But I don't know. It's sad to say, but I do agree. I think this movie, Batman v Superman, shook a lot of people. Wonder Woman brought him right back in, and then they just got the left hook with this one.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that with Blue Beetle, it could be self-contained. It could absolutely be self-contained. And I have no problems with if the DC future moved forward in a non-interconnected universe, but yet you could still make reference to things here and there, right?
Mhm.
You could talk about Batman, you could talk about Wonder Woman, but you don't need to show them. And you have so many other characters that you could bring into this, you know. And I think people are also kind of rubbed raw because we're never going to get to see Batgirl, you know. Like, Warner Brothers doesn't exactly have the best track record right now, you know. Like, if you told me that there was going to be a special screening of Batman and Coyote versus Acme, I would just take my money. I'll go see both of those now in like some weird black market screening of, you know, movies WB doesn't want you to see, you know. They have a lot of goodwill to try to earn back, and hopefully James Gunn can do it.
Yeah. I think if anyone can, it's him. I'm the same boat with that Batgirl thing. It's like, someone get me that script. I'll cook. I promise. I'll make it. I'll make the audio drama. I'll do it. I'll drop everything. But until that script leaks, which, cross some fingers, it's gone.
There are stories that I wish they would adapt. And if you want to do one-offs, kind of like the animated universe did, you know, you think about, you know, making an adaptation of Superman Red Sun. Freaking do it. I don't know if you could do it right now with, you know, the geopolitical environment as it is, but there are one-off comic book stories that if you want to do Gotham by Gaslight as a live action, sign me up. I'll go buy a ticket. Or if you want to take some of these not necessarily smaller characters, but at least lesser known characters like a Zatanna, do it.
Yep. Yeah. Do it, like, and they're doing that with like the Robert Pattinson Batmans, right? And it's working. In the Joker movie, and I think that's something they're open to, and I hope they do continue down that road of not everything. People yearn for the days where you didn't have to watch 8 movies in a season television to understand Doctor Strange 2. Like, people miss that. I miss that. And I think if they can, not everything has to be the Justice League. It's fine to get a Robert Pattinson Batman, a Joker too. Like, do that. Label it Elseworlds. Don't do this weird Peacemaker thing you're doing where it kind of is, kind of isn't. You'll just have to wait and see. No, I don't like that. I think that's way too confusing for even me. And I lived through the New 52.
If you need a roadmap in order to be able to figure out where you are in the universe, maybe shrink the universe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to talk about this because, again, it is one of those very obvious tonal differences from the Zack Snyder version. And I'm talking about the Crayola colorization of this film. Because it did. At times, it felt like someone had a coloring book of Justice League the movie and found the Crayola drawer and went to town on this. Taking a look at this film and then taking a look at the Zack Snyder version, and of course, what came before with Batman v Superman, the look of this film from a colorization perspective.
It has color. I think that's one big difference. And you know what? I'll defend it. I like that the colors pop in this. I was watching it today and I was just thinking, I like when superhero movies have saturation to them. And maybe it's too much. You are right. It does look like the Crayola box spilled a little bit, but I think I would prefer that over blacks and grays in every shot and just gloom and doom in a Superman's related story. I mean, it's like you were saying, it's a tonality problem. I think overall that is the biggest problem with it, is that it's a Frankenstein of a movie. It is two directors with combating visions trying to make their own thing, and that at the end of the day is its biggest flaw. But it's not that bad.
No, it's not at all. I mean, yes, there are times when the colorization is very noticeable. Yeah. You think back to some of the films that were, adapted for color when they were originally done in black and white, and it kind of does feel like that at times. But you're right, like superhero films should have a pop of vibrance to it. It should look as bright and colorful as Shazam if it's in that world, right? Yep. The Batman needed to be as dark as it was because of the tonality of the film. Shazam is a much lighter film than something like The Batman or something like Batman v Superman. So, obviously it's going to be a bit more colorful. And I think because of the tonality of the film, the color matches. I think if you had the 4-hour Zack Snyder cut colored like the Joss Whedon Justice League, it wouldn't match.
No, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. That's that tonality battle that this thing's constantly in showing.
Also, I did like the fact that the film was in 16:9 and not 4:3.
Yeah. I remember watching the Snyder cut and thought my TV was broken, and I kept I had to Google what's wrong. Like, why is it like this? But that's an artist's vision.
When the trailer came out for the Zack Snyder version, I'm like, did they export it wrong and not check the export? Like, is this, are they shrinking it down so people don't take it and manipulate it? Like, what are you doing here? And then the movie comes out. It's like, it's in 4:3 to maintain the director's vision. Like, did the director envision this by watching the old Super Friends cartoons on a classic tube TV?
Yeah, that's how it was meant to be watched, I'm sure, on that old tube TV.
I mean, it's style for style's sake and not for storytelling's sake.
Yeah. I know. I'm watching that and I was like, you're not the Lighthouse. That's not what this is. You're not trying to feel like a film that got lost in your grandpa's attic. It's the Justice League. It's 2021, I guess, for the Snyder cut, but what are we doing here? Like, I think Zack Snyder, we could go on another hour about how I feel about Zack Snyder, but I think he thinks that he's a lot better filmmaker than he is. I know that's a big claim, but I just see that I'm like, okay, you're not that guy. You are not that guy, pal. This isn't working for this movie, but you know what? That's a different podcast.
I mean, the thing with the Zack Snyder version of this is that there's a ton of slow-mo. And I remember when John Woo was all the rage and everything was super slow-mo gun ballet, and it became almost a parody of itself after a while. And I think that's the thing too with Zack Snyder is when he did Watchmen, it's okay, this is really, really cool and a world we'd never really experienced. And this was a comic book line that people originally said could never be filmed. Mm-hmm. And Zack Snyder deserves all the credit in the world for bringing the Watchmen to life. And then came Sucker Punch. But,
yeah, different story.
Very much so, right? But, and of course, you take a look at Rebel Moon, and again, it's the same thing. It's that super slow-mo, everything is, I think it worked for 300, but yeah. I don't know if it works for Justice League.
Not every movie can be that.
No.
And that's the problem. And this is my thing with the Snyder cut that I've said. I don't understand how people can watch this original cut, give it a 1 out of 10, and then watch the Snyder cut and give it a 10 out of 10. I just think that's ridiculous. I've always called the Snyder cut Justice League double spaced. It's just they act like it's this completely different movie. It's the same thing with added long slow-mo scenes to fill out an extra 2 hours. It's the same movie, and that's how it was being advertised too. It's a completely new experience. It's the same story at the end of the day. Steppenwolf is there. They got to get the Justice League, bring Superman back to life, and punch him in the face.
Yeah.
That's the movie. It's like, did you need 2 hours to tell it or 4? I just don't understand the people that say this movie is dog, but the Snyder cut, oh, that's God's gift. Like, I don't know. I just don't think, I think you could give it like up to 4 points higher. I like the Snyder cut more, but you'd be crazy to say that it is just its complete own thing. It's so much. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, did we need 2 minutes of sweater sniffing Icelandic singers in the Snyder cut? No, absolutely not. I mean,
we love the music videos of people sniffing Aquaman's clothes, but let's leave it on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, it was a little creepy. Not gonna lie, little creepy. I mean,
would I sniff Jason Momoa's clothes and maybe sing a little song in a different language? That's up for debate. But would someone film me and put it in a movie? Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
I think that was just a behind the scenes thing that got put in on accident.
Yeah. Now, if he was Lobo, different story.
Exactly.
Because that would be pristine casting, but we're not there yet. All right. Before we get to our MVP, I'm going to ask you, between these two, if gun to your head, you have to pick one of these to own and one to throw at the window, which version of Justice League are you keeping?
Oh, one to keep. I might say this version. I have zero desire to ever rewatch Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's just, you have to commit a week to that thing, it feels like. So this one's just more rewatchable to me. And I will say, hand on the Bible, Snyder Cut is a better movie, but that does not make it a better movie in a type of way. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just more rewatchability on this one, that if I'm owning it on physical media, I'll probably take this.
All right. So it has come time. So Matt, who is your MVP of the 2017 2-hour-long version of Justice League?
I'm giving the MVP to Henry Cavill's Superman in this movie. I think this was Henry Cavill's chance to show people that he gets Superman. Like, people had their qualms with Man of Steel punching holes through buildings and snapping Zod's necks. People had qualms with Batman v Superman. Why did he just stand there as that courtroom exploded around him? We don't know. But in this movie, he just feels like Superman. And the team of the Justice League feels like it as a whole without him for that first 2/3 of the movie. And that opening scene with the kids is great. And that scene where he comes back and just kicks the living tar out of Steppenwolf is so good. And it's just a feel good moment. I love where he's like, what's he say? I'm like a big fan of peace too, or something, just punches him. It's like, that's good. That's Superman to me. He just has all the best moments. I think this is the best characterization of Superman that we've seen on the big screen since Christopher Reeves. And I don't think Henry Cavill ever got back there. Who knows? Maybe Dwayne Johnson would have got him back to that status. Who knows? But in this movie, I just think he's the standout. Not everyone. Most people have their moments, but I think Superman, this movie does a good job of presenting that the world is empty without him. And once they get him back, it feels like this new injection of life is brought to it. And he just sells it in this role. This movie had me convinced that's my Superman. I love Henry Cavill as Superman now, in a way that he hadn't before. So most redeemed, most improved, MVP Henry Cavill as Superman.
I think he definitely gets the most improved player for sure. There's no question about that. But my MVP goes to Gal Gadot. And I think I would actually give Gal Gadot the entire DCEU MVP. Yeah, really?
Very fair.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who stuck it out as long as she did and really got the character and what the character meant, not just to the universe itself, but to the fans of the character. Like, she really, and again, she falls into the same category of actors who were second guessed when cast in a role and then turned around and said, "Oh yeah, hold my beer," and then nailed it. And Gal Gadot absolutely almost saves this film, I think, from the rewrites and the tonality shifts. She's still Wonder Woman. She's still Diana Prince.
Yep. I agree. If she wasn't in these, I think this would be a completely different universe. She carries the DCU on her back. I think Gal Gadot deserves a massage and a long vacation after this series of movies. I mean, they had her in The Flash. They had her in Shazam 2. She was just willing to do these. And I feel like she could have done them forever. So yeah, I totally respect that pick of MVP here.
All right, I'm going to give you the power before we get to you to talk about the Mortalverse again. If you had the opportunity to pitch a movie to James Gunn to enter into his DC universe, which character would you want to write the film for?
Oh, that's so tough. So tough. Okay, James, I know you listen to this podcast because you're a man of culture. You're a man of taste. You're making Superman. I have a little show called Arrow Canary. And if I'm correct, its runtime by the end of we got 2 more episodes coming out. Its total runtime will be about that of a feature film. And if you want to call me, if you want to get a little Arrow Canary, Green Arrow, Black Canary, one of the best comic book couples in history. They get some Suicide Squad action in there. You directed Suicide Squad, James. You love the Suicide Squad. We got that. Got Black Adam. Maybe don't get Dwayne Johnson back, but there's a lot to love in that series, and I think it would make a phenomenal movie. And best part, it's not 4 hours long. It'll print money. Let's do it, James Gunn.
I'm now curious who you'd cast as Green Arrow and as Black Canary.
Oh, that's so tough. That's so tough. Let's do Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland in those roles.
I can see that.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't. It is a tall order to cast those in live action. I'm not sure I could give you a huge justifiable answer right now.
Yeah, it's tough because you would need to cast someone who is different enough, I think, from the TV show casting, and maybe more along the lines of that Justice League Unlimited look, or at least the Young Justice look, especially for Black Canary too, because Black Canary did get her due in Young Justice.
Yep, I know this is just me thinking because the Oscars, but maybe Ryan Gosling would be a good Green Arrow. He's got that charm. He's got that kind of. He's blonde. Both of these characters would be blonde. We're not doing the Jason Momoa and the Ezra Miller thing. And DC loves their blondes. A lot of blonde characters. It's probably because these were all written in the 40s, but
maybe a Kiernan Shipka. I could see her maybe as Black Canary.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. That's a tall order. A big question. Maybe I'll answer on Twitter later because I'm not going to sleep tonight without thinking about it.
I'm sorry I put that thought into your head, but I'm not sorry that I put that thought into your head.
Crazy that we never got well, we did get Black Canary. I was going to say crazy that we didn't get either of them in the DCEU, but I stand corrected. We never got Oliver Queen though.
No, we never did. All right. So before we go, please, Matt, let our listeners know about the Mortalverse and where they can find it and you out there on the interwebs.
Yeah, if you liked the Justice League talk, if you liked the DC universe, you're going to love the Mortalverse. That over there is a series of audio dramas. Wherever you get your podcast, we covered Justice League Mortal, the canceled George Miller film. We have done Nightwing Year One, which is an adaptation of the comic book where Dick Grayson breaks up with Batman, does his own thing. It's got some great moments and characters, and you're going to love it. And right now we are currently working on Arrow Canary and World's Finest Radio Show, which Arrow Canary I described briefly before. It's your favorite archer and screaming badass on an adventure with the Suicide Squad. How'd they get there? Listen and find out. World's Finest Radio Show in Metropolis. 2 broke dudes talking about Superman. That sounds like right up your alley, I bet. So go check all those out. Mortalverse Audio Dramas, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And on Twitter too, Mortalverse. Find us. We're on YouTube too. We're on everything. Just look it up. You'll find us.
Matt, thank you so much for this. And by the way, there is a world of comic book movies that do actually qualify for this podcast. I'm just going to give you a blanket invitation. Anytime you want to come and geek out with me, you're more than welcome to.
Absolutely. I'm there. Let's do it.
Excellent. All right, listeners, you guys know the drill. If there's a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned, or it's just so bad that there is no way in Gotham City that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at Not That Badcast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our coming soon page so you can get a little advance notice of the episodes that we're going to be talking about, and you can chime in and get us your thoughts so you can get shouted out onto the show. Until next time, he's Matt, I'm Jay, you guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
Hey, this is Liberty DeVito.
This is Mike Del Giudice.
This is Michael Cavanaugh from Broadway's Moving Out.
This is John Jackson, director of the Billy Joel Archive.
This is Russell Javers.
This is Richie Canada, and you're listening to Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast. It's awesome.
I'm Michael Grosvenor.
And I'm Jack Fernino.
We're lifelong Billy Joel fans who launched a podcast in 2020 celebrating the music we love.
Whether you're looking for the greatest hits or the B-sides and rarities, you'll find it all here. And if you've ever wondered what happens behind the scenes of a concert or recording session, we've got you covered.
Join us as we explore albums, tours, band members, the latest news, and more. You'll also get a unique glimpse into the music industry straight from the musicians and other professionals who help make it all happen.
Tune into Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast at glasshouses.pod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast is a proud member of the Pantheon Podcasts Network.